Class is now in session. I am Professor Hockey, and today we're discussing Game 76 of the regular season between the San Jose Sharks and the Arizona Coyotes, in which the Sharks have won 7-2. And so with this lopsided score, the Sharks have managed to string together 3 wins in a row for only the second time this season. The last 3-game winning streak that the Shark had came all the way back in November. So the fact that they've only had this happen twice shows just how bad the Sharks have been for the majority of this season. And yet lately, it seems as though the Sharks have kind of woken up, so to speak, or at the very least are playing with a lot more heart in their game. This could be potentially due to the fact that the Sharks have been injecting a lot of new talent into the lineup over these last few games. Just over this 3-game winning streak, we've seen the debuts of Thomas Bordeleau, Henry Thrun, Danil Gushchin, Kyle Criscuolo. Prior to this 3-game winning streak, we saw Andrew Agozzino make his debut. Then there was Jacob Peterson. There's a ton of new faces in the lineup, and maybe the other players, the Coutures, the Hurdles, the Carlsons, the Vlasics, the goaltenders, are wanting to maybe up that performance to try and get those younger players more positive experiences at the NHL level. And so here tonight, this was a game in which the Sharks did indeed win 7-2, but not necessarily a super lopsided performance from the San Jose Sharks at even strength. A lot of their opportunities came on the power play. 3 of their 7 goals were with the man advantage. And when it comes to the even strength play, it was essentially a situation where the Sharks capitalized on the chances that they got, while the Coyotes did not manage to capitalize on theirs. Pretty big goalie difference in this particular game. Kakinen was rather good. Meanwhile, the Coyotes goaltender was not so good. But we have in the first period, starting off, a Noah Gregor goal, his 6th of the season. It would be followed up with the first of 3 power play goals in this game, this one coming from Jacob Peterson. And then finally, Kyle Criscuolo with his first career NHL goal to make it 3-0 San Jose. He is not so much a prospect, kind of falls into a similar situation as Andrew Agozzino was when he was called up from the San Jose Barracuda, more of an AHL journeyman, over 350 career games at the AHL level. And it's a situation where, since the Sharks are calling up pretty much everybody from the Barracuda, has been at least decent at that level, Criscuolo gets an opportunity with the Sharks, and in his first game with them manages to score this first career goal, so certainly congratulations to him. Then it would be JJ Moser for the Coyotes, who would manage to cut the lead in at least a third to make it 3-1 by the end of the first period. In the second period, the Sharks would only have a single goal, but that goal would be quite exciting, as it would be Danil Gushchin's first NHL goal and in his first career game at the NHL level. So this one does come on the power play, but still a nice debut performance here from Danil Gushchin, though we'll get to that a bit later. And so the score was 4-1 at the end of the second period. In the third, it had appeared that the Coyotes might be able to claw their way back into this game with an early goal, but it would be called off for goaltender interference, and eventually the Sharks would add another 3 goals to their name. Noah Gregor, his 7th of the season. Then it would be Logan Couture with the 3rd power play goal of this game, and then Noah Gregor would complete a hat trick in this game. Had you told me at some point this season Noah Gregor would get a hat trick, I wouldn't have believed you. Had you even just told me a week ago that Noah Gregor would get a hat trick, I would still not have believed you. And yet here we are. Noah Gregor has come very far from the point of you can't even buy a goal. Now suddenly a hat trick in this game. Very nice performance from him for sure, especially since earlier on in the season he was a pretty frequent healthy scratch. The Coyotes would eventually add another goal for themselves, but at the end of the day it was still a 7-2 victory for the Sharks. However, now with this victory being their 3rd in a row, if we take a look at the standings at the bottom of the league, the Sharks have kind of put the final nail in their 4th last in the league coffin at this point. It was only a week ago where there was a very, very real chance, in fact they were in that position exactly, that they could finish last place in the league with the league's best odds, but instead they now find themselves 4th last, 59 points, and all 3 other teams were also in action here tonight, and all 3 lost in pretty embarrassing fashion. I believe the Blue Jackets lost 7-0, the Ducks 6-0, and the Blackhawks a bit more decent, but still a 6-3 loss for them. So all 3 of those teams very much committed to the tanking possibilities. They're losing games in the most embarrassing way possible, but the Sharks, with these maybe new faces, like I said, they're winning games. So now they find themselves 59 points. That's 3 ahead of the Ducks. That is 5 ahead of both the Blue Jackets and the Blackhawks. And with just 6/7 games to go on the schedule for these teams, it would take a major miracle for the Sharks to shift downwards from this spot. It would also be pretty surprising if they'd shift upwards. What seemed impossible just a few days ago now is technically possible, though still quite unlikely. The Montreal Canadiens are the 5th last team with 66 points, so the Sharks are 7 points behind them. But if the Sharks just continue to win, you never know what could happen, though with the upcoming schedule with 2 games against the Colorado Avalanche, not super likely. But yes, indeed, the Sharks a week ago, 25.5% chance of that first overall pick, 25.5% chance at Connor Bedard. Now, 4th last, only an 8.5% chance. That is 1/3 the chance. Now let's move on to the players to talk about. The top line of Couture, Zetterlund, and Bordeleau. This line, honestly not great at even strength. I liked the play of Bordeleau and Couture on the power play, but at even strength, not so amazing. I actually thought Bordeleau was probably the best player on this line, I would say. Made a couple of really nice plays, but for sure the weak link on the line was Fabian Zetterlund, who I thought was just rather invisible here for the majority of this night, which is kind of crazy to say in a 7-2 victory for the San Jose Sharks. And this is because, like I mentioned earlier, 3 of the goals were on the power play, and then of the 4 even strength goals, 3 of them came from the 3rd line and the other from the 4th line. So now we move down to the 2nd line of Gushchin, Hertl, and Peterson. So Kaut got sent back down. The situation with Martin Kaut, you'd be surprised because he had been playing rather well, is that he was an emergency call-up, so he needs to be sent back down for, after a certain amount of time, because otherwise, if he's not an emergency call-up and he's just recalled in general, or he's left up here, he would have to go through waivers to be sent back down. So not something that the Sharks necessarily want to do. And so they push him back down to the Barracuda. They call up Gushchin amongst a couple others, Chris Cuolo in particular, and Gushchin has actually a very solid debut with the San Jose Sharks. Not only does he manage to get that power play goal off of a very, very nice shot, it's quite clear that Gushchin has a great shot, and that was coming as advertised, but at even strength, Gushchin was also rather impressive, finding himself in multiple very good positions to actually score. Played a part of a pretty solid line for the San Jose Sharks here tonight with this 2nd line, and I thought, in terms of a grade on 10, actually outperformed both Bordeleau and Eklund in their respective first games of the season, with probably about a 7 on 10, I would say. It is a bit unfair, if you compare the fact that Bordeleau played his first game of the season against the Vegas Golden Knights, an established, strong playoff team, while Gushchin plays against a not-so-strong Arizona Coyotes team. But still, even though it is a kind of apples to oranges type of situation, I still am very happy with Gushchin's performance here tonight. Then when it comes to the 3rd line, for sure the best line for the San Jose Sharks here tonight, Gregor, Sturm, and LeBanc. They had already looked quite good last game and even the game before that, but this game was just brought to a new level. Tons of chances for them. Gregor obviously ends up with the hat trick. I thought Nico Sturm played very well. I thought Kevin LeBanc played very well. Like I said, best line for the San Jose Sharks here tonight for sure. And then when it comes to the 4th line of Chris Cuolo, Lorentz, and Viel, they did score this goal off of a bit of an awkward bounce for the Coyotes. They end up giving the puck away to Chris Cuolo for the unassisted goal. They otherwise weren't super impressive as a line here tonight. Really, it was the 3rd and 2nd lines for the San Jose Sharks leading the way at even strength, plus the special teams play. Now we have on the defensive side of things, Vlasic and Erik Karlsson, and you'll see the point counter. No, this was not a mistake. Karlsson indeed puts up yet another 4-point performance here tonight. I believe his 5th of the season, which is just absolutely absurd for defensemen to have 5 4-point games in just one entire season. So he goes from 91 points up to 95. Prior to this game, he needed 9 points in 7 games to get to 100. That didn't seem impossible, but and not even that unlikely, but would have been somewhat difficult to get there, especially with some San Jose Sharks scoring woes. But after tonight's game, he now only needs 5 more points in 6 games, which is extremely manageable for a player of Erik Karlsson's caliber. And so that 100-point goal is seemingly more and more in reach at this points. So a solid game offensively for Erik Karlsson, even if a couple of them weren't amazing assists, just kind of secondary assists, still nice to get. When it comes to the second pairing, I obviously want to talk about Henry Thrun, who I was so amazingly impressed with in his previous performance against the Vegas Golden Knights. I will say here tonight was a slight step back for Thrun, but I will also say that's not really that much of a surprise. It would have been absolutely absurd if he actually managed to keep up that amazing first game performance into the second game and into the rest of the season, because it was just that good. Like, he would be like first pairing ready if he managed to keep up that consistent level. And so while this was indeed a sort of fallback performance for him a bit, it was still actually a rather solid night for Thrun. So I'm still very happy with how he has looked in these first couple of games, and I'm looking forward to his future with the San Jose Sharks. And then finally, we have Kaapo Kähkönen in nets for the San Jose Sharks here tonight. Reimer, obviously a very good performance in the first win of this winning streak, a not so great performance in the second win of this winning streak, and so Kähkönen comes in here with the start against the non-playoff team and plays rather well. The Coyotes actually had some pretty decent chances in this game, and they only managed to score on a couple of them, so I will certainly give credit to Kähkönen. While he obviously didn't have to be all that great with the 7 goals that the Sharks scored, it was still nice to see. But that will do it for this review. The Sharks will be back in action on Tuesday, where they will take on the Colorado Avalanche. Obviously, their previous performance against the Avalanche was a 6-0 loss, but now on a 3-game winning streak, maybe the Sharks are a whole new team and they'll be able to take it to the defending Stanley Cup champions. Class dismissed.